This is the Sacred Village podcast. Today I am speaking from a tambo in the jungle in Iquitos, Peru. I arrived today. We're doing the podcast from Iquitos this week in segments. This is segment number 1. I'm here to see my teacher, who is a maestro in Iquitos. He is Shipibo, and I am apprenticing under him in this tradition. It's very peaceful, it's warm, it's humid. I've been here a handful of times, so I'm familiar with the area. There's always something new that you get. You arrive in these spaces of ceremony. The ceremony certainly begins long before the actual ceremony in these circumstances, as anyone who has done these types of ceremonies can attest to. Today I'm experiencing a new, I want to say adversary, but I'll refrain and refer to him or her as a teacher, the ant. There are ants in the tambo, quite a few of them. I've never encountered this before. I've stayed in a tambo a number of times, and I've had different creatures to contend with, and each one has its own story and own teaching, own narrative, beginning, middle, and end that comes into play while I'm here doing this work. We call it work. It's called work. We call it work. It's not us, you're among us now, so now you can call it work, or we of the Healing Academy get to call it work. It's not like that. That language of we, interesting choice of words. But I suppose it is, part of the collective that has branched off, and I suppose that it could be categorized as a we, but, it also feels fictional, but it also feels useful. So, much like every other use of the English language, there's always an element of fiction and an element of utilitarianism or usefulness. But yeah, we call it work. We call it work. It is like work. There's a dedication, there's a purpose. You kind of get your game face on. But then, there's a paradox, because the work is about letting go of the game face. So the game face of being in purpose without the game face of persona. So often my feeling is that when individuals enter these realms of retreats or, healing spaces, or game face begins as persona, just I'm calm, I'm doing fine, I'm just here because of this, that, or the other thing. But there's nervousness, there's vulnerability. And over time, as we chip away at that, as individuals chip away at that, what I've noticed, and for myself and other people, is that the game face changes, the persona gets more gentle. It becomes less compromised. The nervous system becomes less compromised. Environment becomes safer. The nervousness of entering the ceremony space, it begins to dissipate, and as we attune to the environment, but also the connection to ceremony, the connection to the teachers in ceremony, the maestro, but then also the medicine. In this case, with the Shipibo people, if you didn't know, they use a medicine called ayahuasca, along with many other plants, many other plant spirits. And, in addition to that, there are other spirits of this cosmology and ancestors, and there are spirits of Christian cosmology that the word Christian, and let's say Christ-oriented cosmology. I do want to stay away from the word Christian, only because of its connotation, which symbolizes a religion, an institution, dedication to the Bible. And, within this cosmology, those lines and those rules and that orientation is, it can shift, it can become blurred, it can become more personal and individual in terms of the orientation to the swag. Maybe it's inappropriate to refer to the Bible as swag, but maybe it's not all entirely inappropriate. It is something that comes with the institution. The Bible did not, as we know it, didn't exist when Christ was around. And certainly there was the Old Testament, and there were, connections to religion, but a falling out of religion, a falling out of the norm, falling out of the orthodoxy at the time, and shaking things up. So the teachings of Christ are Christ Himself, the Spirit of Christ, as comes through, often in these, for many individuals in these ceremonies, including many Shipibo individuals, where the Spirit of Christ, the Spirit of the Divine Mother, do enter the ceremony for many of these people, and they learn from these spirits. It's a very beautiful thing, and you don't find a Bible next to their bed. So just food for thought, that is definitely territory that I'm interested in exploring, unearthing, what's true for different individuals. Everybody's going to have a different truth. They may look, identical from a distance, but as we get closer, everybody's truth is different. Everybody's, let's say, reality is different. We go back to those perennial teachings, and what is true for me is true for you. And so then we have another paradox, but perhaps it's just semantics. But here I am talking on my phone. We'll see how this audio translates to the podcast software and how it sounds. But yeah, part one, here we are. It's a sad thing and also a beautiful thing that happens at these retreat centers. There are some familiar faces, but by and large, the people that you meet and get to know, they're not here the next time you're here. It's a revolving door, and you may, certainly cross paths with individuals again, and lifelong friendships to form at these places. People meeting each other that are on a common path, that can be a very beautiful thing for synergy and companionship and friendship. Yeah, by and large, it's new faces. And so that's, it's beautiful. You get to see the, people that are here, with, courageously stepping onto this path, hearing their stories, seeing where they're at. Some people are not in a good place, when they're here, they're going through one thing or another. They could be, I've seen people close to what seems to me close to a breakthrough. But, the truth is, as time goes on, I begin to see that they're close to the breakthrough for a long time. When you come back, you get to see that. You get to see people having breakthroughs, huge life-changing breakthroughs within 6 ceremonies, working to open their heart or heal wounds of the past, while also in unison with teachings and the openings of ayahuasca. And I've seen people change from, their lives and their personas, losing a significant layer, a mask, that they've been wearing for years and years, that has been a huge part of their identity, but has ultimately been inhibiting something authentic from surfacing, from manifesting. And so I've seen those masks drop permanently in a 6 ceremony, 11-day period. Some people come here for longer, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, year-long diets. I just finished a year-long diet. Most of that was spent at home in my regular life. And I'm here to get that kind of a checkup from the teacher to see how everything went, and to begin a new chapter, post diet. So we'll see what that looks like, and there'll be information from me in ceremony. And there's things that I'm here. I'm going into a mystery room. I have no idea what I'm going to get. It's like there's a Cracker Jack box. I have no idea what's coming, and that's part of what intrigues me. But I know that whatever it is, there'll be depth to it, there'll be challenge, there'll be, adventure, delving into part of the mystery of my own psyche and into the secrets of the universe. Some people may doubt that, but not the Shipibo people, not the people that have been here the longest. They don't doubt that. there is access to mysteries that are beyond our Western orientation, beyond what we are permitted to see as Westerners who are dedicated to science and religious doctrine, and these structures, these external structures that are very helpful and but also very seductive, and they warrant scrutiny, and they warrant mindfulness, and it's important to tread carefully and to be to question the way that we view the world. And is it limiting? Is it limiting to our authentic self, and is it limiting to the deeper secrets and truths of the universe? The perennial truths. How do we access those? Well, we certainly need courage to access those. That's my experience, at least. To have that courage to step on that path, and be okay to open our hearts and bring light to the things we may not want to look at, light to the darkness. There's a paradox there too. It's the same thing over and over again. Is that what we try to hide or what we're afraid of looking at is not nearly as dark and shameful as we presumed. And the great spirits, not the great spirit, but the great spirits, great teachers of medicines, the master teachers of the spirit world and also of the human world, the gurus of the world, those ascended beings in mortal form too. They all will shed light on the same thing. That it's all just in the mind. And feeling, once we get into our body and letting go of, our limitations or our fears. It's just one moment at a time. It's just a process of becoming more aware, more aligned and aware of what is, the deepest parts of what is true. So anyways, that's how I see it. It's a beautiful path, and I'm here for a reason. It's a long ways to travel. I'm leaving my family behind to be here for over a week, and bless her heart, my mother-in-law is with my beloved and our 9-month-old baby, and so everything's good at home, and it allows me to be here, and many blessings along the way of family building, community building. There's a lot of prayer, there's a lot of commitment, and commitment to not just our own hearts, our own healing, but just to the greater good of family and community, and the universe, the world. That in my opinion, that scope can get a little big sometimes for people who are maybe more interested in saving the world than saving themselves. But it's a both and. I do believe, we do our own work, we do our own healing. That's our best way of chipping in to the problems that we may identify in the world. Yeah, that's segment number 1. We'll see what happens for segment number 2. Okay, so now it's 3 days later since I last did an entry here for this episode, and I'm sitting now with another individual. I'm not in my tambo. We're in kind of a jungle bungalow, which is kind of similar to a tambo, but it does have electricity and a regular looking bedroom, but ostensibly it's very similar. And I'm sitting with Bill Merrick, formerly in other ancestral generations, Merrick. So, Bill, you're from England/Wales, and you're here at Niue Rao, which is about an hour outside of Iquitos. And can you first help me with the pronunciation of the territory? Lanchama. So I'm going to pass this over to you, Bill. If you can just tell us a little story about how you got here, what called you here, and what your experience has been like here in the jungle for an extended stay while being a facilitator.
Okay, thanks. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I've always been interested in shamanism. If you went into my childhood bedroom, it's like a library of strange books, and the force is quite undeniable. And I knew that I wanted to spend an extended period of time in the jungle, and I was going to work in Ecuador. And just before I left, a woman called Jo Neal, who's professor of pharmacology at the University of Manchester in the UK, she's like on the forefront of making policy change in the UK. She's a 65-year-old woman who doesn't take psychedelics, but is all part of the data. And she is so part of the movement. She could convince any 60-year-old woman at any village hall to start taking psychedelics, whereas I don't have that power. Right. Anyway, she knew that I was coming here, and she dropped off the Fellowship of the River through my letterbox, and it was the day before I was leaving. So I read that book, and my intention had been to go to the Ecuadorian Amazon, but instead I ended up coming here. It was literally the day before I left, and I sent a few emails out, and it all just connected. Yeah, so I ended up changing my route and coming over here, and I've been at Niorao just under 8 weeks. So I'm still a green bean, but a lot happens in 8 weeks as well. Yeah, it's a very insular environment here in a way, because we're at the end of one of the roads, and the centre's here, and my role is to be here. And so I'm very much working on the ground, working with the passengers, being part of everyone's needs, and then interfacing with the locals as well, and the shamans and the staff. And it's been a blessing to be the interface between all of the information that comes from the passengers and all of the information that comes from Ricardo, the shaman, because I have to really focus, and that information is just washing sort of through my brain. And in the process, I feel like it's programming me as well. So my brain is getting tuned to how he navigates the world, how he navigates these spaces. And I was very nervous when I first arrived. It was a completely new environment. I didn't know anyone. And I loved my friends back at home, and yeah. And I was like, oh no, I'm going to miss them. But I feel like I'm aligning to the situation. Not only that, my whole way of sort of speaking and interacting, I can feel it starting to morph into how it needs to be for this situation, which is very much a process of me also taking medicine, listening to what everyone needs, having to realize quite quickly how Ricardo operates, and it's sort of morphing me into a different character, I think. Right. Yeah, and I'm glad when I can make people have their needs met. People come here, they make such big sacrifices to come here. Yeah. So they've got a lot invested. And that's so lovely to be a part of, because they're ready to give everything. Mm-hmm. But then you're also walking on a tightrope, because you have to get everything right for them. So that's where my role is at. And I've had a couple of bombers so far as well, and connecting with the medicine myself, and can definitely confirm that the medicine here is good and strong.
Yeah, there was last night, so October 7th was a bomba night for many people. But the night before was very, very quiet for many people, and it was like the calm before the storm. You could feel it coming, and but it was all, I feel like, held in a way, like there was a nurturing. Everyone was being nurtured and prepared for what was coming, and then it happened, and it was thorough and beautiful, and laughter at the end, conversation at the end. The Fellowship of the River. What is that? Is Niue Rao mentioned in that book?
Yeah, it's a book I definitely recommend. It's written by Joe Tafur. Okay. Yeah, he was a US medical doctor, or is, and then he started coming to the Amazon, and he was at a center where Ricardo Amaringo was working, and then Ricardo said to him at some point, like, "Hey, look, I want to open my own center." And Joe had been particularly impressed by Ricardo's capabilities. So he started going back and forth to the US working, and with some other friends, Martina and Marcus Draus, they helped support Ricardo in that initial process of getting the center going when there was just a Mallorca here. And they were going out to Iquitos trying to find passengers. And the book is about that process. It's the beginning, and then also a lot of case studies of passengers with specific illnesses that sort of get healed. Yeah, and he's got an interesting perspective because he has that dual lens of medical doctor and curandero. And eventually he trained under Ricardo.
Okay.
Yeah, so good shout out for that book. And a lot of people end up coming here because of the book.
Okay. Sounds like it'll be a good one for me too.
Yeah.
Well, that's really beautiful. I really appreciate that. What can you tell us about your inner life and your inner transformation or your inner process and that relationship with spirit?
Right now it's tuning in. Yeah, I'm tuning into that. It's been a part of my world and some of my close friends for many years now, that we would journey together into those places and nurture that place and be connected. But it's very much taboo also in our culture. So it feels like I had sort of tucked it under my jacket and I'd sort of have it tucked under and couldn't really share so much about, or not that I couldn't, but felt like it wasn't worth it almost because only those that have ears to hear can hear, right? And I feel like there wasn't the space for that in the culture I was. So here is acknowledging that I did have that little golden stone with a fire inside tucked away in my jacket, and I've come here and I've brought it back out of my jacket and I'm holding it, and here it's sort of cultivating, it's sort of growing its strength, and my only hope is that one day it shines strong enough that even if I've got it in my jacket, it will start shining through. So here is a place for me to allow that to come to greater radiance. And here, just by the fact of being here in the jungle, in a place where people have cultivated relationships with plants, with altered states for so long, it allows that to come out by its own accord. And also my family, they can understand that in this context. It's it makes sense here. They have to understand it. Whereas at home, they don't really have to understand it. Or they don't want to know about it. So I think for me coming here, it's sort of almost me coming out of the psychedelic closet, so to speak. It's allowing me to nurture what I've always harbored, really, and what I've always had a longing for, but to go deeper into that now. And yeah, I wish that it just keeps unfurling, and I wish that I can keep being part of other people's journeys. I want to be connecting to the songs of the plants. That's my sort of aim.
Yeah, the golden, what did you call it? The
golden stone.
Golden stone, right? That's all, that's all I see now, or at least that's the primary thing that I feel like, after doing this work for several years, that's like the first thing that I'll notice. And that's the most important thing. And I certainly noticed it in you. It's not hiding in your jacket anymore. But I guess it also the eyes of the beholder or the person perceiving is going to be different. So yeah, it's really nice for our soul or our, how we resonate on that deeper level, our heart, to be seen, in an environment like this all day long, by many people. And there can be ebbs and flows, like somebody might be getting a little bit sick or just having some emotion coming up and need to to tend to themselves in their tambo or in their space on their own for a while, where they don't want to see other people. And at that moment, they're not really interested in, the light that you're radiating. They're tending to their wounds. So there is an ebb and a flow. But, when that person comes back out, in this space, what happens is that we go into those spaces. We tend to that self-care. And when we're fully through, we fully, embrace that or release that. And then we come back into the light of day. We see, what you're talking about, the shining light of that stone even more brightly with every time that we do that. So there's this sort of symbiotic relationship that's happening between like the ebb and flow, contraction and expansion. It's like the cycles of the moon. So we have to honor that with people. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing, the healing path into being connected to source and the radiance of nature and God and all those things. So, any final closing words that are coming up for you at all?
Be brave, take the journey.
Yeah, there you go. Well said. Thank you, Bill. Bill Merrick, yeah, facilitator and translator. So I'm not sure if that was clear at the beginning or if you had mentioned that specifically, but he's been a translator. So the going between the English-speaking passengers, primarily English-speaking, you may have other languages, but and the Spanish and Shipibo-speaking maestro. Yeah, and so to be able to have that intimate purview is an it's an honor, I'm sure, right? It's a real blessing. Yeah, and that actually, I have one more quick question for you. So that transformation into the translator, is that exposing like a part of you on a deeper level authentically, or is it learning how to kind of put on a business persona in a good way that you then will want to, let go of when you go back into the world as Bill Merrick?
Yeah, I find that I have to be very present and I have to be clear in my words, where I think if I'm with friends or in non-professional environments, my words can get a bit loose. Also, being from the UK, we like to play around with words quite a lot. Mm-hmm. So I've got to really strip all that back and come from a place of communication that is very clear. But then that's the one side of it. And the other place is that it has to be true and heartfelt. Mm-hmm. And also, nothing here is unseen. Everything is somehow transparent. Mm-hmm. It's part of the shamanic space. The shamans see everything, right? So even if you do something, even if you try to hide something, then it's just hiding or the energy comes through. So it's beautiful because you can let go into that. And it's like, well, the only thing you can do is turn up as yourself in the moment authentically. And if you can't manage something, then that's okay. You just turn up as that. But that's taken me a few weeks to lean into, I want the shamans to feel like everything's going well and that I want them to be happy with the work, that the passengers are getting everything they need. Mm-hmm. But actually that feeling can make me feel anxiety and pressure. Whereas if I drop that and just focus in the moment and don't actually sort of care what they think in a way, so obviously I do, but if I let go of that, I can be more transparent and present. But yeah, for sure, nothing goes unhidden here. Everything sort of resonates. Yeah.
Yeah. Well put. And I'm glad I clarified that because everything that you said is very much aligned and a reflection of my journey too, as a person that is not a translator at all. So what I heard from you there was just, it's a practice of mindfulness. And I can see people when they come here, they slow down their steps. They become attentive to every step that they take over time and every word that they say and the intention behind every word. And you're cultivating a deeper level of awareness. People, the general is what I see. And certainly, speaking for myself, cultivating an attentiveness. But I feel safe to say that it's not just me, like it's not just a personal thing. Everybody that comes here is cultivating that attentiveness and awareness to the present moment. So they can, instead of talking We can be very much speaking words without being attentive to really the nuance and the inflection. And that's why, hurt feelings can happen regularly. A lot of laughter can happen regularly, like a lot of spontaneity and creativity can happen in that space, in that kind of creative space of, hanging out with buddies, right? But then, hurt feelings can happen too, because we're not completely grounded in that creative space. It's kind of a paradox, creativity. You do have to be ungrounded to really be there. And then it can be dangerous too. But if you can somehow be in that space while still being attentive to it, well, maybe that's the goal, but I don't feel like I'm there yet. One step at a time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Mark. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise. It was a vulnerable exchange between myself and the maestro when I came here, and Bill was privy to it. And I'm very grateful that it was you that was there, that because I didn't know you. I just met you in that moment, or maybe moments before, very briefly. So I was like, okay, he's a translator? Okay, all right. I'm just trusting this. And after time, you do realize that in this held space, you can trust. Like, it's under the purview of the maestro and of the spirits. And so all very aligned. Grateful it was you. Yeah. And I guess that's it for now. I'll do another closing for the podcast, probably in the airport, somewhere on the journey home, the 3-day journey home. Here I am. I'm in the airport now in Lima on my way home. I didn't get to delve into the different layers and tangents in the space of the retreat and the ceremony culture at Niue Rao as deeply as I would have liked, but there's a bit of a taste of what life is like in this part of the universe, in this aspect of my life. Very grateful for the space and for the commitment of so many people to the work that people are doing on their inner worlds, for themselves and for their families, for their communities. There's many different ways to do this type of work. I do really appreciate the indigenous traditions, ones that are both local to where I live in Canada and British Columbia, and then also in the Amazon. There's so much to learn. The shine emanates from the eyes and the hearts of the people down here, the locals, both in the village that supports Niue Rao, that supports the ceremonies here, but also in the surrounding village. It's an economy that's based around fundamentally this retreat center. It brings in a lot of money and resources for people, and employs them, and keeps them in, there's a sustainable way of living. But then there's also this spirit, this very loving spirit that governs it all. And there's an environment not just for the individuals that are showing to do their work, to bring that wisdom, or that I guess the knowledge, but then also the energy of home, that opening of the heart, of the corazon. It's it's there to plant those seeds, but it also shrouds, it contains, it creates a canopy over the people that are working there, the village that is hosting the retreat center. And it is a Shipibo retreat center that has spoken about with Bill. It's more than that. The surrounding area, there's another lineage area, where this retreat center is, and so the Shipibo people have come there as guests, but as invited guests and supportive guests, and they're more than guests. They're rooted there. It's their home. So there's an agreement. And these agreements are sacred, and there's many of these types of agreements that are happening on this path, governed by these very sacred energies, sacred consciousness and spirits, and many of them, of Westerners. And it's important to be very attentive, in my opinion, to the whispers of these agreements and to honor these agreements with reverence and care, with mindfulness and with an open heart and receptivity and courage, to be able to be in our heart courageously, wherever that direction might lead, and to be able to have that space to find clarity. Those daily practices, as well as ceremony, in my opinion, are the nervous system regulated. That regulated nervous system, they say, the effect of a therapist is first and foremost. What's important is for that therapist to have a regulated nervous system for the patient to be able to resonate off of that and to receive that feedback from the universe to this individual as they learn to re-regulate their own nervous system, to cultivate that connection, that awareness, that mindfulness. That's what we do, in these ceremonies and in these spaces. And what manifests from that is authenticity, and like I said, connection to the heart, and then that expands outwards into relationships with family, first and foremost with ourselves, but then family and community, and then the world. So in that order, in my opinion, there's one step at a time, and many steps between community and the world. There's broader territories, but I believe, from the micro to the macro, from the seed that's planted, in our backyard, the seed that's planted in the womb of a woman, to give life. It all begins with that and starts to work its way outwards into the macro and expansiveness. And it's important to not get ahead of ourselves and to start working on the world before we've really nurtured and cultivated that fertile ground, and cared for that seed, and allowed that young, the youthfulness, the innocence, the baby plant, the baby human, the baby community, the baby culture, the freshness of that life, a sacred, those sacred times, that sacred time in our existence, the youthfulness needs to be cared for and nurtured and also prayed for. So yeah, all from the Lima airport, into the jungle, as with my partner's song at the beginning, Into the Fire. There's a synonymous connection there, into the jungle, into the fire. So much love, and looking forward to being back home with my family and my people, my community. But my people do expand out to this part of the world too. So it's a real blessing to have that. It's also a very sacred thing, a sacred aspect of my life and of the world, to have these opportunities, these energies, these aspects of existence. It's a good time to close. Thank you very much for listening. Many blessings, everyone's journeys, whether you're in transit or journeying just through the day existentially, and with the body and mind and in tow, and our soul leading the way. This journey continues every moment of every day. The present moment never really changes, even though it does, even though it doesn't. All my relations, Sacred Village podcast. This is Mark A. Lewis, over and out.
I lay my head down.
Check out my lovely partner's music, Kristina Jessen, at KristinaJessen.com. And there's also more information on what we're doing. We're doing a land project up here, traditional land development with a community intention. And if you're interested in any of the retreats that we're a part of and part of organizing, You can find all that information at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Have a wonderful day.